Hello, welcome back. Today, we're going to talk about the things that the algorithm and the controller don't want you to know, so knowing yourself. And we're going to start with the gateway to your shadow, or your weakest link. So, I'm doing this too because I woke up this morning with a certain feeling. Maybe because I was doom scrolling before I went to bed, maybe. Perhaps, I don't know. But if you are also doing the doom scrolling, you might know that feeling too. It's not just the news is bad. It might feel like more physical than that. Like the floor shifted 2 inches while you were sleeping and you're trying to walk normally, but something is just off. And I worked as a psychiatric nurse for over 27 years, where I was sitting with people in the hardest moments of their lives. And I know a lot of these people had these moments too. We all do, actually. We just hide it. So I know what that feeling means, and I want to talk about it today. Because I don't think you're alone in it. I think a lot of us woke up this way in the world we're in right now. Or you run and hide and pretend it's not happening, but if you're any bit aware, you're here. So here's like the concept, and I'm going to talk about patterns of people and how we can use them as resistance. And if we look at typology systems, there's MBTI. There's some things it gets right, a lot it gets wrong though. Because it says you have two basic strengths. Ways of being that feel natural and almost effortless. And maybe you're someone like me who lives in possibilities, always seeing the next idea, the next connection. That's just some of us though. And maybe you're someone who can read people like a book, or someone who really thrives with logical systems, or somebody who runs on their feelings. And these are all real, they all matter, and understanding your strengths matter. But here's what most simple typology systems skip over. And remember, I'm bringing this up for the purposes of knowing ourselves as part of psychological resistance to the controllers who are using Darvo and coercive control and the crazy algorithm to keep us off balance. So they skip these typology systems. They talk about your strengths, but they don't talk about like the dark underside or, the shadow of what Jung was, talking about, things we don't know about ourselves. And complexes we don't know. So we behave in ways we don't even consciously register. So there's a certain gateway to the shadow functions that Jung called the inferior function. And it's something that never quite really developed alongside the rest of us when we're growing up. So it stays sort of raw and undefended, and people actually have a midlife crisis if they don't deal with this. So really by the end of life, you have to understand this process and this complex. So this inferior function, and another theorist named Beebe took it even farther to describe things. It's real, but not in the MBTI, and I get why a lot of people say MBTI is pseudoscience, because it talks about a few small things about us, and people guess all the time, and it seems quite incomplete, and all the guessing makes it seem like not real. So I looked at triangulating things from East and West and different theories into something called Personality OS to look at the patterns in us. And we're complex living human systems that operate with other humans in a complex society. So we're not just a static list of stuff. So anyway, back to this inferior function in our basement. So this is our weak link, and you can be aware of it. It's the basement of the conscious mind of what you are aware. So when the world gets destabilizing, and for me, when the ground starts to move, the basement is the first thing that cracks. And you might hear a voice in your head telling you all about how everything in your life is falling apart. And the algorithm's going to use this to keep you off guard. So this weak part in the basement of your mind needs something to anchor to, and the weakness and the anchoring are in a pattern. So there's a lot of variation, but it's a system of 8 essentially. So your particular mind anchors and feels vulnerable an insecure in one of 8 ways. So you might have heard, those of us who are older, of Adler's inferiority complex. That was like a big thing in the 70s and 80s. But it was like a thing people were insecure about, and then they would behave badly or even be unaware of this and really sabotage their lives. So this thing causes a lot of problems, and it's like in the basement of the consciousness. So I want to look at the patterns, and they aren't like a textbook definition. But essentially, I'm going to talk about the voice in your head. And for me, it's like when the voice comes when I feel like, reality and the ground is shaking under me. Um, Funny thing too is you're probably going to notice like other people being insecure more than you. And they might speak these things out loud, or you might even see like this is what's driving them. And I mean, I truly believe this shows that God has a sense of humor. Like, whether you believe that or not, like having this insecurity zone be like something you're only partially aware of that leads you to sabotage your life and relationships, but you see it in others. Pretty interesting. So let's talk about the 8 flavors of this like insecurity. And they are the 8, I'll list them out. Ambush, collapse, chaos, trap, judgment, stupid, rejection, and bad person. They're all the insecurity zones. And if you listen closely, you'll hear one of them screaming in your head right now, or you'll remember somebody in your life screaming about this, on a cascade of other things, but recently. So let's talk about number 1, the ambush complex. And the lingo is extroverted sensing inferior, SE. So the people that sense this are what I call a chess master, or INTJ in MBTI, or the oracle, or INFJ in MBTI. So here we go, ambush complex. For those of you who have this going on, it's the feeling that the physical world is out to get you. You walked into a room and you feel exposed. You're terrified of making a bad impression or looking clumsy or awkward, just not feeling confident. You freeze because you're so worried about how your body might be moving, how you look, how you sound. So you might even freeze up and not move at all. And the voice will say, if I just stay still, maybe they won't see me and maybe I won't mess this up. So that's 1. Number 2, the collapse complex for the introverted sensing inferior, or SI inferior, and that's me, the Pathfinder, or ENFP and MBTI. And then there's the Mastermind, an ENTP. If you watch C.S. Joseph, he explains all this beautifully, and he's an ENTP. So if you haven't seen his channel, what are you doing? Check it out. So I'm a Pathfinder, and then I also have some similarities with masterminds. And so I'm going to bring up in a little bit Dustin Henderson from Stranger Things. So we'll look at him as an example in just a minute. But for those of us who are so worried about everything collapsing, I mean, in Stranger Things is about the world collapsing, literally. This is a feeling that everything you built is falling apart. You wake up and the routine is gone, the safety is gone. You're terrified of trying something new because what if it fails? Like my YouTube channel. What if I get sick? What if I forget? What if the algorithm doesn't show me? You're stuck in your head, imagining every possible disaster, paralyzed by the fear that the past is coming back to haunt you. I'm still here. But I had to deal with this morning. And the voice says, I can't trust my body. I can't trust the future. If I step out, I will fall. So the third we'll talk about is the chaos complex fun for the people who have extroverted intuition inferior, or an E inferior. And these are the stewards, or ISTJ and MBTI, and the strongholds, or the ISFJ and MBTI. So this is the feeling that the future is a nightmare that you just can't stop. You look at the world and you see only catastrophe. History is competing. Society is collapsing. We're all doomed. You resist change because change feels like chaos to you. You need the known, the safe, the way it was, because the unknown feels like a trap. And the voice says, don't change anything. If we change, everything will break. The end is coming. If you ever watch 6 Feet Under, an oldie but goodie on HBO Max, Ruth Fisher is a steward ISTJ, and this is her. So the next is the trap complex. So this is the introverted intuition inferior. So this is the maverick, or the ESTP, the catalyst, or the ESFP. So this is the feeling that you are making the wrong choice and you're trapped. You look at your life and you panic. Did I want the wrong thing? Is this career a mistake? Is this person I'm with wrong for me? You feel like you're walking into a destiny you didn't choose and you're terrified you'll wake up in 10 years and realize you wasted your life. And the voice says, I'm going to regret this. I'm going to wake up and realize I chose wrong. I am trapped. And I was just watching Pluribus on Apple TV last night. And if you've seen that, the main character, Carol, this is her. She's an ESFP catalyst. So if you watch that show, you see this. So next we have the judgment complex, or extroverted thinking, TE inferior. So these are the artivists, ISFP, like Max on Stranger Things, or North Star INFP. So this is the feeling that the world is judging your worth. You're terrified of being incompetent. You're scared that if you speak up, people will see you as a fraud. You avoid systems. You avoid rules because you're sure you'll get it wrong and everyone will know you're not good enough. So the voice says, they're going to see I don't know what I'm doing. They're going to say I'm a failure. I'm not worthy. And now we have the stupid complex, or introverted thinking, TI inferior, for the social connector, ESFJ, or unifier, ENFJ, who's Mike in the show, I believe. And it's a feeling that your logic is broken. You're terrified of being wrong, not just mistaken, but stupid. You worry that your ideas don't make sense, that you're missing a key piece of the puzzle, that everyone else sees the flaw in your thinking and you're the only one that doesn't. The voice says, I'm going to say something dumb. I'm going to look foolish. My logic is flawed. I'm not smart enough. So you see Mike overcome a lot of this. And then the rejection complex for the extroverted feeling, the FE inferior, for the free agent, ISTP, and I have lots of relationships with these types, fun, and the inventor, INTP. So it's the feeling you really don't belong. You're really socially anxious and terrified of the group. You're scared that if they really knew you, they'd hate you. You suppress your feelings because you're afraid of being a burden or of causing a scene or of being cast out. You feel like an outsider looking in, wondering why you just can't fit in. The voice says, they don't like me, I'm too much, or I'm not one of them. If I speak, I'll be alone. And our last is the bad person complex, or introverted feeling, or FI inferior, for the prime mover, ESTJ, which is Steve in Stranger Things, or the chief, the ENTJ. So it's a feeling that you are fundamentally broken. You're terrified that you're a bad person, that your success is a lie, that you're just pretending to be good, but deep down you're selfish, cruel, or ineffective. You push yourself to achieve more, to control more, because if you stop, you'll have to face the truth that you are not enough. And that voice says, I'm a fraud. I'm a bad person. If I stop achieving, they'll see the real me. I'm not worthy of love. Oh, that's a rough one. So, I talked about some uncomfortable stuff, I know, but I'm spilling it out here for you. So if you look, which one of the voices is screaming in your head up right now, or recently, or ever? You don't have to answer out loud, just sit with it. Because that voice, that's your inferior, like in the basement of your conscious mind. And if you don't listen to it, here's the danger. It's going to flip and turn into something else. It's going to turn you into your bad guy, or like the nemesis version of you. And that's when fear turns into paranoia. But for now, just know you're not alone in hearing this voice in your basement. And we all have the voice. And again, you've probably heard others voicing this thing out loud and acting like badly because they believe the voice is true. So, And I talked about the collapse complex, and wow, I still showed up here today, even though I felt the world was collapsing a couple hours ago. So this is like the introverted sensing inferior, and it like really is something that has to ground me into my body and the past and like continuity. So it's a sense that I still have the ground under my feet, and the same ground was still there yesterday, it will still be there tomorrow. But when I look at the news and I see institutions start to crack, when the structures we relied on just start feeling unreliable, my whole collapse complex is the first alarm that goes off. Like, and I hear those voices in my head and feel something's off in my body, like the tilted floor feeling, the foundation moving, and I can't trust that I'm on safe ground anymore. So when I woke up with it this morning, I did things like breathe and ground myself, because you can't just, shove it and keep it in the basement and push through it and perform your way out of it. So I wanted to like bring that experience to you here to show I'm going through it. Thousands of my patients have gone through this, and that, we're in uncertain times, and you may be too. Um, and the algorithms and the, controllers want to use this to keep you hearing these voices in your head and off guard. So I'm going to talk about one character, because I said you can see these things play out in fiction with well-written characters in books or movies or shows. So let's go to Stranger Things and look at Dustin Henderson. Like, I love the show, like, I love the characters, and I'm going to show you what it looks like in him if you've seen the show. If you've seen Handmaid's Tale, like the mastermind character, this is, gosh, I can see his face and now I'm blanking out his name. He's Commander Lawrence. There's I think in, if you watch Game of Thrones, this is the character, gosh, Tyrion Lannister. See, I'm having trouble coming up with words, but anyway, they come. But anyway, there are probably lots of masterminds you've seen out there. So if you've seen like a character in fiction or read them in the books, they're people who use a lot of logic and can come up with all these grand theories. So this is Dustin, and he's like a kid, and we watch him grow up. So I like to watch shows and type people because, like, when they're in traumatic situation and the world is ending, you see all these like unconscious things come out. You see people like fighting about things. So I've built this like personality OS over the years. So it's about, Carl Jung and this actually a mastermind named Beebe who came up with an 8-function model, which talks about your shadow too. And sociotics theorists who talk about quadras and our cognitive ways of thinking and processing. And I do some other sort of archetypal stuff from all sorts of systems. And then I like to watch like people in my life or my patients or, people in fiction kind of like live this stuff. And I watched C.S. Joseph for like years now, and again, he really helped me to understand a lot because he talked about Beebe and sociotics. So this is just not like the Reddit MBTI forums where people are just guessing. And we'll get into that more another time, but like back to Dustin. He's a mastermind, or ENTP in the MBTI label. So his superpower is really seeing all these possibilities, connections, ideas firing in every direction. He's always on his voyage of discovery. And he's like very good with like logical thinking too. So he uses this like logic superpower with being able to see everything in the field to build theory. He trusts his logic, and he's like, brilliant. He's coming up with stuff like about what they're facing that nobody else comes up with. But what's his inferiority complex or his weakest link? Like his is really about the collapse. He's like really afraid, of the future and everything ending. And he needs like continuity and safety and physical stability, which isn't happening in Stranger Things. And he wants his world to be recognizable. And if you look at his mom, she's really, really great at like keeping things stable, and you can tell she really cares about him. But once we have the mind flare, upside down, and world ending every season, he's not so secure. So watch what happens to Dustin when the ground starts moving for him and it's insecure. When the threat's real and the stakes are really like life and death. does he go quiet or collapse? Like, no, he goes into like an overdrive with his like, fear feeding him that strongest tool, like his logic, reading the field. And he'll like push really harder on the theories when he's afraid. And he becomes more certain and more confident, not less. This is, the inferior going to nemesis. He's more controlling of his plans and other people. He's not open. And he needs everyone to follow his logic because logic is the only solid thing left for him. So that's not arrogance exactly. That's what he falls into when this like inferior in the basement gets triggered. It says, I'm exposed. I can't let you see that. And then Dustin will reach for whatever he does best. But he'll drive it to the point where it's actually helping them. And a lot of times he's right when he's in an excited state, but if he's afraid, he can be catastrophically wrong, which he figures out in season 5. And when he's wrong from that place, I mean, really, he had, he was worried really about like all of existence collapsing because he had a plan. It was not based on a valid theory. So he really did things like having Nancy do something from an invalid theory, like was going to end the world and he was going to be responsible. So they're constantly trying to prevent the world ending in Stranger Things. So Dustin, who's got a fear of collapse, he's literally trying to prevent the collapse of Vecna's planet, the Mind Flayer, colliding into ours, like literally, like our world is about to collapse. And his way of coping isn't a character flaw, it's a survival response, and you can see it over the 5 seasons. He's very human, it's very understandable that this is what happens when you feel like the ground moves and you haven't learned to let yourself, feel it. I mean, they don't have time, but it can feel like that for us too. It's just we don't have a Mind Flayer universe colliding with ours. So here's the thing. Right now, millions of people are having their inferior basement function triggered simultaneously on purpose by the controllers and the algorithm. It's collective. It's historical. So people like me and Dustin, we literally can feel the ground collapsing and we feel like things are dissolving. We see the institutions that helped us feel secure, like they're starting to crack. And other people, like just say, one of the other 7, like the judgment complex, they're watching systems fail in real time and they're scrambling to prevent it and control this, but they can't. So remember, when this inferiority complex, inferior function in the basement gets triggered at a huge scale and nobody has language for it, nobody knows what's happening in their nervous systems, you get like this collective, what are we going to do? And kind of freezing and panic or bad behavior or all sorts of stuff. So people are reaching for their strongest tools and driving them past the point where they help them. It's like certainty without actual evidence to support your certainty. And then your attempts to control might start to backfire. And we're going to talk about what comes next in that cascade. Like in the next video, we're going to talk about the nemesis. For today, just like look at your weakest link. Is there a voice screaming right now? And I threw in names in the patterns, but you don't have to worry about the names. Just like look at your experience. And was there any voice in those 8 complexes that spoke to you? I mean, whatever it is, just name it to yourself right now. Because naming it is powerful. You can't interrupt a pattern you can't see. But if you start to see it, and where the shadow starts, it's in this very quiet, uncomfortable, very human place that we all have. Like seeing it, knowing it, like knowledge is power. You don't have to fix it today, you just have to be willing to look at it. And if you have and you want to share, like I am doing, please let me know in the comments. And you're not alone. So everyone who shares is helping other people not feel so alone. So I mentioned, the next video will go deeper because here's what I've learned clinically, personally, from 27 plus years of watching thousands of people under pressure. When this inferior in your basement cracks and you don't process what's happening, something is going to shift in you and it goes into your unconscious. So this will turn into like fear and paranoia. And it's not about you. You're going to project it outwards. It becomes a story about others and the world, about who's threatening you, who's against you, what doom might be coming. So this shift has a name. You go into fight, flight, defensive mode. And this is your nemesis. And it happens and you're not aware of it. So this is like your, dark superhero villain coming out. But you're not going to see it in yourself. You're going to be thinking it's everywhere else. But I bet you've seen it in other people all throughout your life. They don't see it, but you can see them. So, just while you're doing this work, do some light breathing. Have your exhale longer than your inhale. You can do like 4 breathing, box breathing. Do some grounding, get a hug from someone if you can. Just do things to like calm yourself down and like be with other people, because it is hard to look at this. It's hard to feel all these awful feelings just like totally alone. So I want to tell you I appreciate you spending time with me looking at something vulnerable. And I see all of you, these fears we mentioned today, what you think is good and bad about yourself. You are beautiful as the imperfect human that you are, and we'll find our way forward together, one step at a time. So take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.